Okay, let's dive into this. Grab a cold drink, find some shade, and let's unpack a seriously fascinating piece of market analysis. We're looking at the crypto landscape through the lens of summer 2026. The author of our source text today takes this deeply nostalgic, almost I told you so approach to how the entire digital asset space is transformed. I mean, we're looking at a world where the very institutions that fought this tech tooth and nail, yeah, they're now the ones aggressively trying to control it. In this explainer, we're going to break down their strategies. From sneaky summer market manipulation to high-stakes geopolitical maneuvering, we'll use the author's sharp insights to understand exactly who is trying to take your piece of the pie.
Think back just a few years. Do you remember what happened when you tried talking to your cousin, your neighbor, or, I don't know, your local bank teller about digital assets? The author paints a super vivid picture here. They looked at early adopters like they'd literally just escaped an asylum. You were either the biggest fool on the planet, or worse, some dangerous scammer destined to lose your shirt. People would tell you, with absolute superiority, by the way, to learn from the banks, because supposedly only traditional banks knew how to protect money, and digital currencies were just a fleeting scam. Yet, here we are in the summer of 2026, and those exact same neighbors at the weekend barbecue are now casually asking you, hey, so how does that Bitcoin thing actually work?
Section 1, The Great Irony, Shifting Tides in Traditional Finance. Now, what's really interesting about this is how drastically things have changed. You see, it wasn't just your neighbors who changed their tune. The real irony is the massive 180-degree turn pulled off by traditional finance. Let's look at this stark contrast. On one side, we have the banks of the past. These are the guys who swore up and down that crypto was a robbery, a total scam, and incredibly dangerous. They position themselves as the sole rightful guardians of your wealth. Now look at the present reality according to our source. Today, those exact same traditional banks have suited executives eagerly selling Bitcoin funds right inside your local neighborhood branch. So what changed? Did they just suddenly have a philosophical awakening? Well, not quite. The author argues they simply realized where the real money is. And now that they smell the profits, they aren't just joining the market, they are, in the author's own words, playing dirty to take over the whole board. Section 2. The Whales Board, Navigating the Summer Markets. To understand exactly how they're playing dirty, we really have to look at the hidden mechanics of the low-volume summer months. We all know what ballenas or whales are, right? Those massive entities with so much capital, they can move market prices like a giant wave crashing onto the shore. But here's the catch. During the summer, when the average retail investor is distracted by vacations and hitting the beach, overall trading volume naturally drops. This quiet period is exactly when these whales make their most calculated, strategic moves. The author breaks down their summer strategy into 3 pretty ruthless steps. Step 1 is tree shaking. Basically, the whales intentionally generate sudden, sharp downward price drops to spook everyday retail investors. This leads directly into Step 2, panic selling. The average citizen gets nervous and sells their assets at a loss out of pure fear. And then we get to Step 3, the ultimate goal, silent accumulation. I mean, who do you think is buying all that heavily discounted Bitcoin? The whales. But they don't buy it all at once. That would spike the price. Instead, they slowly and quietly fill their wallets in the shadows. And they do all this while the mainstream news is loudly broadcasting that the crypto market is just, quote, boring. It's a brilliant, if frustrating, illustration of how market psychology is weaponized against the average person.
Section 3. The Geopolitical Trap, a high-stakes game of global chess.
But market manipulation is really only half the story here. The author presents this geopolitical theory that reads almost like a spy thriller, outlining how global superpowers are using regulation to completely reshape digital finance to their advantage. We can map out the core argument by comparing 2 major exchanges, Binance and Coinbase. According to the text, Binance, with its Asian and Chinese roots, has been systematically cornered by massive fines and strict regulations. The source argues that while Western powers use security as the official excuse for this crackdown, the real motive is to push out an independent, global competitor that sits outside the direct control of Washington or Brussels. In stark contrast, Coinbase, which was born in the tech cradle of Silicon Valley, is basically given the red carpet. It's approved, heavily supervised, and perfectly aligned with U.S. financial interests. The endgame, as the author sees it, is to clear the board of independent global players and establish a total monopoly for local, easily controlled platforms. Building on that geopolitical angle, the source highlights what it calls the Silicon Valley, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump triangle.
The text neutrally observes that this alignment really isn't a mystery. You have Elon Musk acting as a massive tech and crypto agitator out of California. Then you have U.S. political figures like Donald Trump openly advocating for the United States to become the crypto capital of the world. According to the author's analysis, this isn't just about embracing cool new tech. It's a highly coordinated effort to ensure that the massive financial yields of the digital asset revolution stay securely captured within American platforms and American companies.
Section 4. The Banking Counterattack, Co-opting the Digital Revolution.
Which brings us right back to traditional banks. Think about it. 10 years ago, the whole point of crypto was to let everyday citizens, whether it's a young entrepreneur or your grandma, transfer value and control their money with absolute independence. No asking a bank manager for permission. But as the author points out, the banks aren't stupid. They've launched a three-pronged counterattack to co-opt this entire revolution. First, they changed the narrative. When they realized they couldn't stop us from using digital assets, they decided, hey, if you can't beat them, buy them. Second, they helped create regulatory toll booths. The author specifically calls out massive regulatory frameworks like MiCA in Europe, arguing they're basically used as an excuse to impose million-dollar compliance costs. This effectively chokes out the small, independent financial startups. Finally, with the competition suffocated, banks offer their own proprietary solutions. They are super eager to sell you Bitcoin ETFs and custody services right inside their own banking apps. The ultimate irony here? They're charging you fees and dictating what you can and cannot do with the very assets that were literally invented to help you bypass them in the first place. They just want you back at the teller window.
Section 5. Your Financial Sovereignty, Lessons from the Adani Monitor. So the crucial point is,
how does an everyday investor navigate a space where whales manipulate the summer markets, governments play global chess, and banks try to sell you back your own freedom? Well, the source offers some pretty core lessons. First off, take a second to realize that time proved the early adopters right. The massive institutions that called you foolish are now quietly buying up the very assets you researched years ago. Second, and absolutely most importantly, do not easily surrender your financial sovereignty. The whole point of this modern financial tech is not to pay a bank a premium to hold your private keys. It's for you to understand how it works and hold it yourself. The author insists you must prioritize your own education. Diversify your assets, never ever gamble with money you need for rent or survival, and fiercely ignore the manufactured media noise. You know, like those claims of a boring market while whales are secretly accumulating? You really need to study the market with a clear, independent mind. Because true financial freedom, as the author reminds us, starts with actually understanding the game being played around you. The board has changed, the players have evolved, and the institutions are closing in. Which leaves us with the ultimate question posed by today's explainer. Now that you see the hidden strategies of the whales and the banks, will you do the hard work to maintain your financial sovereignty? Or will you take the easy road and hand the keys right back to the bank? Keep your mind clear and keep learning. Thanks for joining me.